Everybody, I think we're going to go and get started. Some people may still trickle in. The weather's a little rough outside, so they can certainly join us midstream, but we'll go ahead and get started this evening. Good evening. My name is Jim Barnes. I'm the Assistant Village Manager for the Village of Wellington, and this is the third item. Thank you, Bruce, for the silent clap. I like it. This is our third public engagement meeting. This format will be a little bit different than the prior meetings we've had on the Town Center project. And so to make it a little bit easier, what we've done is set up two podiums up front here. After I give a little background and information on the project, if you filled out a card, please provide them to either Ms. Quickle in the back or Ms. Cintron in the back, or Ms. Quickle's right there now. And Ms. Newbin, our village clerk, will be managing the card flow. And we're going to ask you guys to come up if you so desire to speak at each podium. We'll try and keep the movement going a little more quickly and efficiently so that we'll have somebody on deck when somebody's speaking. If you choose not to speak but want to have your comments read, we can certainly do that as well. If you decide to have more comments during the process but can't stay to either get them read toward the end of the meeting or anything else, you can have a seat at the table in the back and write the rest of your comments. We have plenty of cards at the tables by the entrance. Again, I'm Jim Barnes, Assistant Village Manager for the Village of Wellington, and the project we're here to talk about this evening is the Town Center project. And just a little background, kind of how we got to where we're at today. We'll start in the very beginning, but not too far into the past. Is Wellington in the 1970s, actually 1972, Palm Beach County approved the plan for Wellington as a planned unit development. It was unincorporated at that time, and it got a lot of good press, and certainly, as evidenced by all of you here tonight, it's a great place to live. And that was the original plan for the Village of Wellington as it was originally envisioned. Actually, we've got other areas that since were included in incorporation, but that was the original planned unit development. And as a way to entice the easternmost residents of the county, they found all sorts of ways to get people to go west on Forest Hill and get all the way out here. And clearly, over time, in a short period of time, Wellingtonians, back then even as unincorporated Wellingtonians, decided that they had their own view of how they saw Wellington, and it was different from the way the rest of the county may have seen Wellington, but it didn't matter because they were Wellington, and we were Wellington. So fast forward, we incorporated in 1995-96, so roughly, depending on when you look at the exact date of incorporation, depending on the end of 95, so that we could make it to the next tax year, or the actual, when the council took office in March of 1996, we're in that 22, 23-year-old time frame. So as municipalities go, we're relatively young. So in that era time frame between unincorporated county, 1980s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s until incorporation, our growth went from probably around 1980, we were around 4,000 people. And just to fast forward today, we're close, if not over 65,000 people. Again, testimony that it's a great place to live and people like being in Wellington. So approximately in 2008, 2009 timeframe, we were trying to figure out what would we need to do to keep Wellington moving forward. At that time, we came up with 8 concepts for the future. And while we're not here to review all of those items, one thing you'll note on there was a town center concept. So even at that time, we had started looking at the town center. What we started doing, and keep your eye on the screen, I just like to wander around, is basically start looking at improvements with the town, within the town center area. And for background purposes, when we initially incorporated, what you had in this area was the old community center, the old tennis courts, the aquatic center, and the rest was a lot of open space. And then shortly earlier on, again, prior to incorporation, and as properties developed around it, the Lake Wellington Professional Center, while not originally part of the village's assets on the property, was also on the property. So in the 2008-2009 timeframe, we looked at the town center. At that time, started our process, started our planning for the site, albeit piecemeal. We had decided that we needed to make improvements to the existing village assets on the property, and also needed to add one major asset that we really didn't have, a complete village hall. We had portions of offices and lease space throughout the town, throughout the village, and also had the original Acme Improvement District building off of Greenbrier. So at that time, We started the first project we actually did renovated on the property was the aquatics facility, and actually went in while keeping a lot of the actual shell of the pool area, expanded it, and provided the ability to do 25 and 50 short and long course meets, improved, actually demolished the old pool building and created a new and improved building that could house staff, locker rooms, restrooms, facility, and meeting space for use at the facility. And around that same time, in the 2009-2010 timeframe, we also went ahead and had some other projects start. The Wellington Amphitheater was a result of us taking over grant funds that were provided initially to the Cultural Trust for an amphitheater that was supposed to be built at the 10-acre site at Wellington Green Park. That project did not make it all the way to the construction phase, and the county awarded the balance of the grant funds to the village, and the village completed the project on this property. We also had, in conjunction with partnership with the Williamson family and the village council, and spearheaded by former council member Elizabeth Benequisto, we constructed Scott's Place, a barrier-free, accessible, universal access playground. And ultimately, as I mentioned, we were also in the process of designing the new Village Hall. Around that time, 2011 timeframe, after we actually were already in the facility at Village Hall, located on this property, we continued to kind of evolve the eight concepts idea for what to do in Wellington, and started looking at the area around the town center. And particularly if you look at here's our town center property, and we started looking at the residential property around it. And that was around 2011. And at that time, in the December of 2013, the village closed on the Lake Wellington Professional Center as it was purchased, and that was for $4 million. And in 2016, we moved into the new Wellington Community Center, which sits on the property that previously housed the old community center and the tennis courts. So in that time frame, just to kind of back up now, in that time frame where we basically developed the pieces and parts of this property one at a time, we also decided that we needed to look clearly as Wellington moved forward and more residents moved into Wellington. We need to figure out what to do. If you go back actually to the amphitheater, clearly when we built that, we had no idea that ultimately it was going to be as popular as it is. But we've built it and it's become popular, and I still don't understand it, but Thursday nights, food trucks remain popular for years and years and years. Scott's Place. You can't drive through here on any weekday evening after school or when folks are getting off of work, and the place is packed with parents and their children. Village Hall clearly was able to centralize the location where we had people spread all over town in leased space. We have centralized it now in one location. So there was a need that we saw as staff to go ahead and try and continue planning, and at this point maybe not do it in a piecemeal manner. So we did that, but just some clarifications, because I know there's a lot of anecdotal information out there, so hopefully maybe I can clear some of that up this evening, or at least provide some input from a staff perspective. You know, there's a lot of questions as to really who's behind the project, why are we talking about the town center now? Well, hopefully I've demonstrated we've always been talking about the town center. It's just an evolving and redefined project every year in order to try and keep up with as Wellington and the area around us keeps changing. So more importantly, just to be clear, staff was. As a whole, I think staff's desire is to make Wellington a better place. Council's desire is to see us do that, so we're going to make those recommendations to council. Some other clarifications out there as far as the water body behind us, Lake Wellington. Absolutely, it is a drainage pond. It is a retention pond. It is a man-made lake that was dug so we could fill properties and build homes, but it also, oddly enough, is a feature that made those homes valuable and made this property here valuable and desirable. So, but not unlike other properties and other lakes in the county that are man-made, they continue to be used for other purposes other than just getting some fill and raising housing pads. So it's the same issue. Okeechobee Lake, those are all borrow pits, and that fill was used for road work up and down the East Coast. Same thing with a lot of other man-made lakes that you can still continue to use them for water skiing, etc. It's not that we're encouraging swimming there, but it is a component, and clearly even the design of this building tried to take advantage of the vista that you have here with the lake, in addition to having it right on the lakefront. Lastly, Lake Wellington Professional Center, just some clarification in terms of the information, acquisition-wise. The acquisition cost was $4 million. It was a $5 million price tag. The seller, Mr. Adams, granted the village $1 million back, so the net price of that facility is $4 million. And there's a lot of discussion back and forth. Is it an enterprise fund? It pays for itself. It makes money. It does, but it doesn't. So the reality is, if we're going to talk about enterprise funds, an enterprise fund is like our utility department, wherein our rate structure for utilities accounts for operating costs, maintenance costs, staff costs, including general daily operating maintenance, but also capital maintenance and acquisition of any materials, supplies, and capital assets. In the case of the Lake Wellington Professional Center, based on the acquisition direction that was provided by council at the time, we acquired it, and again, at a cost of $4 million. We're into our 5th year, but as of the audited statements that show the 4th year, we have a little bit over $800,000 set aside. So truly, it does cover all the operating costs, maintenance-wise, staffing costs for the manager and the staff there on the property to provide the services, as well as the day-to-day maintenance. We have not, as we've said before, provided for any major capital. Truly, we could go ahead and take that $800,000+, and maybe by the end of the 5th year, we'll be at $1 million, and utilize that for capital maintenance, whether it be roof replacement or other major capital expenditures. However, just so we're comparing apples and apples, when you're looking at our utility department, which is a true enterprise fund, you really have to look at the cost of acquisition. Just like if you all were in business and you either bought property for your business or you actually bought a franchise or something like that, not only would you look to price your information or price your business model such that you could go ahead and cover your daily costs, your operating costs, pay your salaries and all that stuff, and also make an annual profit, you'd want to cover your cost of acquisition, or at least have some kind of schedule so you can figure out what your rate of return would be. At the rate we're going, if we choose to either not do any capital improvements and just acquire those funds to be able to offset the acquisition cost, that would take about 20 years. Or if we went ahead and spent money and did some capital improvements, it would certainly take longer if we were trying to divert and split those funds to account for both. So some background. So now moving forward, where we're at, fast forward, starting in 2017, we actually started looking into the town center again. Because again, it's clearly where a lot of things are happening, and it's become the 3rd place in Wellington, as much as we can have a 3rd place in Wellington that isn't Starbucks. And David, can you help me out?
You're speaking very fast, and it's very difficult to hear.
Okay, no problem. I'm sure David's going to turn the volume up. Is this helping, David?
That's helping. That's helping.
Okay, awesome. Carl, can you hear me? All right, awesome. All right, so trying to speak a little bit more slowly and hopefully louder. So basically what we've got now is in around 2017, we presented to our council. And at that time, we looked at different options for additional master planning of the overall town center property. And what we've done since 2017 is the plans that you see before you here that you also had in the lobby, basically is the evolution of the different planning efforts that we've had since 2017 from a staff perspective, but also we had some consultants come in and help us, including looking at expansion of green space within the site, offset that with parking structure possibilities, looking at partnering with the adjacent commercial properties to look at possible opportunities for retail and office. Also looking at additional opportunities along the waterfront, whether in the past some of the options we looked at included dining. Some of the options we look at include some kind of open space, and yes, in the early stages, even a sand area. However, all the concepts had a retaining wall, so it really wasn't a beach that died into the water. It was a sand area that had a retaining wall, so it's really not a beach, but it's a sand area to enjoy in a natural area. But since then, there have been other revisions that show just open space and other event space around there. And In addition to that, we've looked at circulation options that has us tie in Ken Adams Way, Chancellor Drive, and internal circulation around the property, again, since this has become a gathering place within Wellington. So those are the different options. Those of you who were great enough to make it to the different events we've had, including the 2 public input meetings we had initially here and then subsequently at Village Park, as well as the public engagement that we attempted at our lakeside events, were proposed where you saw basically different options. Different options for boardwalks and waterfront activities, different ideas for the green space, whether they be playground options or other novel approaches to adult recreation, options for parking structures that may have to serve the need not only for the adjacent commercial or non-residential areas, but also the need on site if the green space displaced existing surface parking. Water feature concepts, because one of the components shows that we do have a potential to relocate the pool to a different location. Some information on the pool as well while we're at it. We reconstructed that pool in that 2008, 9, 10 timeframe. It was the first project on the property, and while we did expend considerable money, $1.8 to $2 million between the actual pool construction, which was around $800,000, $900,000 reconstruction, and you also had a new pool building, etc., we still kept a lot of the old bones in that pool building, and in the pool, the same shell. We just replaced the actual liner. It was an old liner, that was an old structure, then it was replaced early on with an actual vinyl Bertha liner, and we went back in and said that wasn't working. We went back to a conventional gunite type scenario, which you have out there now. We did some improvements to allow, again, for short course and long course meets and what have you. So there were improvements there, but we are looking again, because ultimately, to look at that life cycle of those improvements from our perspective as staff, we believe at some point it will require another substantial investment to either continue at the level it's at and really be able to offset the other aging infrastructure that's there, whether it be a replacement of the existing sand filters that weren't replaced during the pool reconstruction or other types of improvements that are required. So we have the proposal to look at different water features. We have a proposal that we asked everybody to weigh in on to look at the combination of actually a public-private partnership with the adjacent non-residential properties and make improvements along Ken Adams Way, tying into Chancellor Drive from between South Shore and Forest Hill. And also looked at a civic center, which ultimately we said really civic center, cultural arts center, performing arts center, what have you, whether it be at this property or if there really was comment and information that was received from the public input, you know, maybe elsewhere within the village of Wellington. So those are the things we looked at, and that's, like I said, we went from a civic center to say, well, let's define it a little bit more and maybe look at it as a performing arts center, again, whether it be here or elsewhere in Wellington. So at the end of the day, you know, everybody's got their own personal opinion, whether it be based just on opinion, fact, expertise, what have you. And regardless, I think every person in here may ultimately have a different opinion, and that's okay. You may not agree with anything I said tonight. That's okay. I'm glad nobody threw anything, and I'm glad you guys told me you wanted to hear more, and I need to speak up. I appreciate it. But there's one thing I think we can all agree on, and I thank everybody for being here on this Valentine's Eve. But what we want to do now is get your input again. If you've told us to say, tell us more. Give us detail. And if you want to just say the same thing again, that's great. If you have more comments, that's great. If you want to give us some things you don't want to say in public, that's awesome too. We can take it in written form, not a problem. But there's one thing I think we can all agree on and we're all clear about. The reason we're all here tonight is because we love Wellington, okay? So with that, what I'll do is open it up. If we can start with the names, we'll get you set up on the podium and start the comments.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, first up, we will have Stuart Hack and Roxanne Stein.
Okay, so if we could have Mr. Hack at this side and Ms. Stein on my right, you'll be on deck. Okay, good, how are you?
Good evening. I moved to Wellington from New York in 2005. I was looking for a place that had good schools for my then 7-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son. I was looking for a place that had a community feel where I could raise my family and feel like we were part of something. My wife became an active member of the PTA at our children's school, while I coached both recreational softball and soccer here in the village. In 2012, I started my own business, and as that business grew, I became even more involved in my community. I served on the board of my temple, became a business partner of one high school, and a member of the Student Advisory Council of another. I became active in the Wellington Chamber of Commerce, having served on that executive board for 3 years and counting. I was starting to feel that as a resident, I mattered and I can make a difference. The past year, that feeling has changed. The Lake Wellington Waterfront Initiative, or Town Center Project, whatever you want to call it, has had no input from its residents to date, no real input. The December town hall event, and I can't call these meetings, it was held 1 week before Christmas and was utter chaos. The one held 2 weeks ago was less attended, but equally useless. One person texted me just before saying it looked to her that it would be the same waste of time as the one in December, so she would not be attending. And I can't argue with that. The theme of that one was what the residents wanted in a town center, not if the residents actually wanted a town center. There have been no feasibility or revenue studies on a town center to date, or at least none that have been released. You are ordering, not asking our residents to sign on for a project that will potentially increase taxes, increase traffic, and increase crime in Wellington. Before you even think of putting $1 in the town center, why not see how we can improve what we already have? We're in a brand new community center that is underutilized. How can we change that? How can we improve Scott's Place? How can we improve the amphitheater or the lakeside events we have monthly? I'm not sure if crime has increased over the last couple of years, but we're definitely seeing increased coverage of it in the Wellington media. I'm afraid what would happen to the crime rate with a big area of green space replacing offices, particularly late at night. The demographics of Wellington have changed since 2005. The young families who moved here then are looking forward to the next phase of their lives. Many of them, including myself, would like to stay here in Wellington. I think the council needs to recognize that and make decisions consistent with this new demographic. You need to determine whether there is a want for this project, and then, and only then, you look into whether there's a need for it. You don't start making plans without running it by the village residents, the people who have elected you. Finally, let me leave you with this. My community is not a stakeholder in me if they have no vested interest in my happiness or success. But I am a stakeholder in my community. Recognizing you need me is the first step to earning my trust and support. Thank you.
After Ms. Stein, we're going to have Shirley Siegel on to the other podium.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Roxanne Stein, and I am president of the Wellington Chamber of Commerce. I'm addressing specifically the proposal to remove the Lake Wellington Professional Center where it is now and develop the waterfront. Whether it's been my long career in television or the fact that I've lived in this wonderful village for almost 25 years, perhaps it's even as chamber president, many residents seem to think I have a vote or a say in how things are run in the village. And I have to say, in the last couple of months, more than any time since I've lived here, I've had so many people, and I can say no fewer than 100, come up to me and ask me, why is there even a proposal to develop it, the waterfront? Call it a town center, call it whatever you want to call it. But I'm being questioned, a waterfront? There's a beach 30 minutes away. Why would we put any money into developing that? Not one person has said to me, wow, that's a great idea, tell me more. I can't wait. It's been quite the contrary. I've not had one single person, even when I explain, and I try to be as unbiased as I can be, that there's a waterfront, we could develop it, put a boardwalk, have some concessions, it might be a nice place to come. I don't get it, is what I get in return. And how much would it cost me in tax dollars? So I'm asking, why would the council propose, as has been in one plan, displacing our neighbors in the Lake Wellington Professional Center? Not only does the village not subsidize the Lake Wellington Professional Center, it generates a profit on its own. Now, these are, for the most part, Wellington residents who not only pay rent and village tax receipts, but as a result of having their offices here, having clients come here, there's residual money spent here. They stay here. They have lunch here. They spend money on Wellington businesses, with clients, with families during the day. At night, instead of having their family meet them in an office building in another area, Lake Worth, Delray Beach, Boynton Beach, they're here meeting people and spending money on our businesses. They're investing again and again in our community, in addition to paying rent at the Lake Wellington Professional Center. I suppose that they could move somewhere else and take those dollars with them. Or some of them perhaps could even be put out of business because they'd lose clients who found this is a convenient way to stay in Wellington and use businesses in Wellington. You know, in past meetings, there's been mention that the village doesn't want to be a landlord, but in fact, when you think about it, and it was mentioned this evening, there is the community center that we're in tonight, there's the tennis center, there's the pool services. Now, all of them do have fees associated with them. For those services, the village collects them. So in essence, the village is a landlord in one way or another. There's green space right near this community center. I attended a fabulous event there last Sunday with my husband, but it's underutilized. This community center is underutilized. It's new, it's lovely, but it is underused. Does it need a full kitchen to generate more revenue so more people would want to have events here? Perhaps it does. Well, then spend the money on that. Spend the dollars here rather than do something else that may end up underutilized as well. Please consider that. So I still am waiting to hear the real excitement and the real enthusiasm about spending what could be taxpayer money to develop an area where there's already green space and there's already a community center that are presently underutilized. Let's not do it again. Small business is the lifeblood and the backbone of a community. It is the strength of a community. We have families when there are communities with strong businesses, small business. We have good schools because we have successful, strong businesses, and we have families who will attend those schools. Any plan that proposes taking down the Lake Wellington Professional Center without another comparable building for the small businessmen and businesswomen to move into is, in our opinion as a chamber, a bad idea, is something that should not be considered, and as a chamber, we cannot support it. I would ask the village council, I would ask the mayor, before you vote on this, think of the residents of this village, their tax dollars, their voting rights, and what they have said to you, and vote accordingly. And think of the tenants in the Lake Wellington Professional Center who pay rent, who pay taxes, and who vote, and what they really, really want. You were elected to represent us. Please consider that.
And on deck, we have Mr. Tom Winn up at the other podium.
Hi, my name is Shirley Siegel, and I've lived in Wellington for 12 years. My parents moved down here in about '73, and they are both now deceased, and I've continued to live in a house. And the way I've seen Wellington develop has been pretty well. However, I don't believe that you can really just dismiss a $2.1 million swimming pool and put it somewhere else. I do not believe that it is necessary to try to make this place look like downtown West Palm, specifically City Place, which is not doing that well. There is no reason that I can see to do all the things that they are proposing to do at this juncture. We have a lovely city. People like it here. I don't see people really looking to get out. They have some odd things with the Wellington trucks that go around snooping on our property. However, that is, I guess, the price of doing business. Yes, I had a crooked mailbox. We won't go there. I just stood it straight up and went like this. It was fine. But this is not going to be a place that has all kinds of bells and whistles. This is a hometown. It's been in existence for a very long time. People like it here. They want to stay here. And as Ms. Stein said, I don't see anybody saying, what do you mean you're going to spend more money? Aren't we so excited? No. I thought it was ridiculous when they put those little blocks on Forest Hill Boulevard. You know, it's like, to me, it was like dressing up a pig with a pair of earrings. What for? You know, this is a home. People live here, they like it. It's developed nicely and slowly. But when the city council starts doing stuff and just throws some more money out of it, sorry, babes, it's not your money, it's our money. Gotta go.
Good evening. My name is Tom Wenham. My wife and I have lived here. We moved in here in 1981, so we've been here for 38 years. Most of you may know I was on the village council, the first village council in 1996. I was your mayor from 2000 to 2008. I think this is a magnificent village. We tried to make it that way. The council is doing a good job as far as I'm concerned. But this town center, and it's, Mr. Hack has already used my words because we sat at the table 2 weeks ago. Is this a need or is this a want? And I think that that's got to be outlined to the residents here, the taxpayers too. What made me get up here to speak this evening? I mean, I'm interested to hear, like I say, we're going to stay here till we're gone, my wife and I. At the last round table, I sat at table number, I think it was either 6 or 8, and they had all kinds of diagrams laid out on the table, I believe for every table that was there. And what concerned me was they had one in white where the town center would be, and all I saw was the community center, the amphitheater, and this building, the village hall. And I thought, where's the pool? And that's what concerned me. That's why I'm speaking tonight. Yes, when we first moved here, my wife and I, the pool was in tough shape. I will agree. I think the village has done an outstanding job of restoring it, as Mr. Barnes said this evening. I think it should stay here, where it's located at this point in time, not move it over to Wellington High School. I know there'll be an interlocal agreement between the school board and the village council saying that this will take place, that'll take place, these are the hours of operation, but I still have some concerns. A number of years ago, we had an interlocal agreement then, I believe, and Paul, you can check me out if I'm wrong, that said that we could use the tennis courts over at the high school. I don't know how many people actually went over there and used them, residents here. So that bothers me that the pool was not shown, so that meant that the council then has already made a decision to get rid of the pool. And I think if anybody else is here tonight, that during the summer, all you have to see is the summer camps that come and use that pool all the time, all during the summer. I question whether there should be some time for us seniors who may want to use that pool at the same time.
Seniors use it every day.
You do? Good. Then thank you, ma'am, for speaking up. I certainly appreciate it. Maybe there should be talk with Publix or who owns the shopping center or the buildings for additional parking when we have events at the amphitheater. I mean, yes, parking is a problem. There is no question about it. But I don't want to see a parking garage 3 or 4 stories high in the middle of our town center. That concerns me greatly. Perhaps the village council should have a village referendum on this and put it out. A couple of years ago, we did this with putting a hotel down the equestrian area. Some of you may remember that. And that was voted down. I'm saying maybe to get the feeling, and I know there are diverse opinions as to what should be done on this town center land, but perhaps if they did, because they have election coming up in 2000 in March for council seats, maybe a good time, it won't cost any extra money, but it may be a good time to put this on a referendum and see how the people feel about it. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to be before you.
Next up, we will have Bruce Tooman and Dermot McMahon. Bruce Tooman and Dermot McMahon.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Tooman. I reside at 752 Lake Wellington Drive in Village of Wellington. My question is why? Why do we need more green space? We currently have 24 neighborhood parks and 10 community parks and memorials, not to mention miles of bicycles and horse trails. Why do we need more parking for the events? You know, our new community center here, site plan, had overflow parking in the grass area where the tennis courts were. But we're not using it. We're forcing people to park over at Publix and getting their car towed or booted. Why do we need to replace our new parking lots that was just added during this construction? Was that poor planning on our management? Why do we need more restaurants? You know, the public shopping center has 7 restaurants, and according to the computer, there's over 100 restaurants in Wellington. Why do we need a boat dock? Because our current docks are not designed for pontoon boats and fishing. Why do we need a new swimming pool complex? Our current facility is one of the few in the county that meets recommendations, requirements, and has a water park too. Why did our council last night discuss the reconstruction and the relocation of this pool when we have this meeting today? A $10 million project to improve the Palm Beach County School Board's property, not our property. Why do we need to spend tax dollars? Because our council can. I urge our council to be good stewards of our tax dollars. Sell the office building to the tenants. Government should not be involved in office rentals. The pool, the tennis courts, those are public good. Private office buildings are not. Use the money to fix the pool and build a boat dock and a fishing dock and maybe lower our taxes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dermot McMahon. I'm a resident. I'm a Chamber of Commerce on the council, and I'm also a business owner in the Lake Wellington Professional Center. I am here to object to the removal of the Lake Wellington Professional Center. Currently, there is approximately 170 businesses located in the center. 74 of those are office spaces, the rest are virtual spaces. At prior council meetings, they had talked about, well, there's some virtual spaces, like the virtual businesses didn't count. Well, they do count, because they meet their clients here. Most of those clients are residents of Wellington. So it's 170 businesses. There is no other executive building space in Wellington. The only other executive space available is in it's off of Lake Worth, and currently is at full occupancy. Right now, there's almost at full occupancy at the Lake Wellington Professional Center. It's a great place to meet my clients. Half my clients are residents. I originally had a business in Lake Rock Shores, and when I came across 441, I lost half my clients. They didn't want to follow me because of State Road 77 mentality. So if I have to relocate my business, I'm going to lose clients. There's talk at prior council meetings that it's a 35-year-old building, that it's a frame building, and it needs to be removed. Well, there's a lot of residence homes here that are frame buildings too. Do they need to be removed? No, they just need to be maintained. Right now, there's over $1 million in profit that they've made since 2015. If they need to make repairs, they have the money to make the repairs. It's in a separate account. At this stage right now, they may need a new roof. They've got estimates from $160,000 up to $235,000, but that may be a year from now. It might be 10 years from now. The land that the Lake Wellington Professional Center sits on is total about 1.8 acres. Half of that is parking. In all the plans I've seen from the village, it's still going to maintain that parking. So you're looking at a passive park that's less than an acre. Well, you have that space right over here on the north side of this building. If you want to activate the town center, try that first. Put a boardwalk out there, put some tiki huts, see if that attracts the people. Right now, I sit at lunchtime, I come out for a break, I look over here, no one uses it. It's always empty. Right now, also, since they've been talking about this, they first wanted to put into the budget the $1.2 million for the design plan. And since that time, the village has been putting on these public events every month at the village, trying to, in my opinion, to create a demand. Again, that was being put on at taxpayer money to subsidize these events that are open and free. They're free to residents and non-residents, so it's taxpayer money is being spent on it. There was a canoe rental for 3 months in the months of June, July, and August. Only 9 rentals. So obviously, there's not a demand for it. They're trying to create a demand. And I also attended the last meeting over at the Pearson Center. There were about 10 tables there, and basically, from that meeting, what I could see, there was no consensus. Some wanted parking garages, some did not. Some wanted Lake Wellington Professional Center removed and put up a wall, others did not. So again, the consensus is not there, but yet this village council wants to go forward. So I'm here to object to it. Thank you.
If we could have Dolores Boshian and Jim Brass come up to the podium, please.
Hello, obviously, I'm Dolores Boshian. Where some of my predecessors have spoke specifically to their concerns being the office buildings, I'm going to speak to mine, which is my community, where I live, where I moved into about a year ago because of its location, because of its safety, security, and construction, and that being the Mayfair complex adjacent to the property in question. I'm concerned with preserving our property values. If we were a typical condo community, I'd say yes, they're going to go up. But we are a senior, over 55 community. While many of us are still very active, there are many of us who still enjoy that quiet evening on our deck. We don't necessarily want the traffic, the pollution, the air, the noise, etc. Office and parking structures? Yes, I understand. I worked for a developer for 35 years. You may need more office space in the community. We may need to bring in more businesses, etc. But you have space between the town hall and the community center. Put it there. You can do a footprint and you can go up. You don't necessarily have to spread it out. When it comes to the cafe and food services preserved, I don't get it. There are restaurants on every other corner, if not 3 or 4 in one block radiuses. You can have your sidewalks and your boardwalks and your parks and your covered area. Wonderful. Parents need a place to go play with their kids. They want to go sit in a park, fine. But think about putting up a kiosk or small little private vendors who can serve your water or something. A parent who's had their kid playing all day long is not going to want to take them into a restaurant when they're wet from their water park playing. And the swimming pool, I think enough's been said. It's there. It's relatively good condition. It is one of the best rated pools in the state of Florida. There's no reason to play with it. Luxury pool, just about every condo complex or homeowner has some type of pool in their own backyard. I'm going to go into other areas of concern which I have not heard anybody touch on, because I'm fully aware that development will happen. And I want to make sure that things are put into the budget that protect not only my complex, but the surrounding residents. Things like traffic, security, noise, air pollution, lighting. We're going to have dust and dirt from demo. We're going to have dust and dirt from construction. I don't know the age of those buildings. I haven't been here long enough. But I'd make book there are hazardous materials on site. Right now, they may be encapsulated and legal. But once you take a brick or a wrecking ball to that wall, we're all at risk just because we're in the proximity of that demolition. We have a secure complex at Mayfair. It is gated. We want to make sure we're going to have a secure complex when this is all built. Whether it be a wall, no, I don't need a $5 billion wall like the president, but I do want to make sure we don't have trespassers in our complex. I'm also concerned about the views. I don't want to sit at the pool and look at a parking structure. Put it on the other side, in between the other buildings. And last but not least, we have environmental issues. What's going to happen to the critters that are around there? Am I going to have to expect the iguanas or the mice, rodents, other animals to be crawling away during the course of construction and into our complex? I can tell you, they're talking about reconfiguring Lake Wellington. How's that going to change the flood zone, and how are we going to be affected? These are things I want to make sure are put into budgets, and they are addressed, and they are taken into consideration as part of any development happening in that area. And last but not least, in regard to my community, I am going to run for the board, and I can tell you if for some reason they do elect me, I will be looking to the township for reimbursement on any additional costs because of their construction that we may incur. Last but not least, I'm hoping that when it comes time to lease this new space, or when it comes time to put in the new restaurant or parking garage, that it is correctly managed. The lease provides for certain things, and those lease items and restrictive covenants go with the land, not necessarily the tenant. So the next guy in can't necessarily change the working hours or have deliveries at unreasonable times. Thank you.
Good evening. It's a tough act to follow. Some of these people well prepared. I came in here. I know this is the third meeting. I've had other business going on prior. This is my first invitation and evening to be able to join you. My name is Jim Brass. I moved here in 1983 with my wife and 3 children. We built our home here. Population is about 6,000. We watched Wellington grow. We wanted to have an ideal community. We looked in West Palm Beach, we looked on Palm Beach, North Palm Beach. We selected out here for the growth. And they gave us an idea of the potential growth. It's going to be 20,000 people. What are we close to, 60,000 or something like that right now? First of all, I support small business people in that building and anywhere else in the country because they are true people and they work hard and diligently. They pay their taxes, etc. Secondly, the demolishing of that particular building and creating, quote, green space. Prior to this evening's meeting, and the sun was still up, you could look outside. Do we have green space out here already? It's overabundant. And where else are we going to put? Are we going to use the waterfront? Who's going to use the waterfront? I myself, I like to fish. I fish the lake. And you have some photographs that show up that show people on paddle boards and kayaks. I'm a kayak fishing person. I have a center console also. But when I go kayak fishing on the lake, we very seldom see anybody else out there. Who's going to use the waterfront? And there's a sign distinctly on this dock right out here that says, no fishing. Yeah, very true. Anyway, who's going to use it? That's the biggest question. And as far as the swimming pool, it's been renovated, yes. We also had tennis courts. They were renovated by knocking them down and taking them all the way across the county almost. It's unbelievable. Why not keep people here involved without having to drive a great distance? The old clubhouse was here for the community for use. We had dinners all the time. It was granted and needed to be knocked down. Dilapidated, infested, etc. But the gentleman says, why? Why are we doing this? Why? Because some ideas of conceptual concepts. Can you imagine on the conceptual concept of taking a walk down Forest Hill Boulevard, down South Shore, and back through the parking area? I can't. I'm very sorry about that. I'm being redundant on a lot of these things. There's wonderful places to venture out, take a walk, take a bike ride. Just go out and enjoy. Do you realize how many little small parks there are around the lake in communities? Get out and see and adventure. They're all over the place. People don't realize that. Green space, again. It's readily available immediately, already there. So where are we going from here? Who benefits? We, the people, are going to benefit from extra green space? Moving the pool? Putting a parking lot somewhere? Having a walk around the block? Developers, the construction people, demolition people. I'm not knocking business, but please, we have some hardworking people. Many people over here have spent time, effort, and they're good people, because I've used some of their services in the particular professional building. I feel that this opportunity to speak was worthwhile. However, I think it's a waste of time for somebody to even put this concept on the table in front of us as citizens.
Next up, we have Mark Eli and Ellen Brown.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Brown. I have lived in the Wellington community and been a tax-paying resident for 37 years. I raised a family here. My kids have been very involved in the community, and so have I. When I moved to Wellington in 1982, we had Wellington Elementary School was the first school that was under construction. We didn't get mail delivery to our homes, and I was a very active advocate in this community for many, many years, making sure that we got schools built out in this community, that we got services that we needed, and I'm a big advocate of improving this community. But I, like the other speakers that we've heard from, feel that this project is being pushed through very, very quickly without a lot of information and without a lot of input. I attended the previous meeting in Village Park, and I think it bothered me a lot because we saw a lot of grandiose plans that clearly are very costly, and yet when people at the table were asking about the cost, we were told, no, this was just a meeting to see what features we wanted approved, and we weren't really talking about cost at this point. Well, I've been the CEO of a large nonprofit, and you don't make plans without knowing what those plans are going to cost. And I think it is extremely important that before any further process goes on here, that the people in this community, the taxpayers, clearly understand the cost of what's being proposed and that it be put to a referendum that the citizens of this community vote on. Many of these people in this community, like myself, have lived here a long time. We aren't poverty-stricken, but we aren't in the position to fund through taxes or whatever we would be paying for to pay for this development as well as the maintaining of all of this. And as far as the availability of some of these things, we live less than 10 minutes from Okehili Park. If you haven't availed yourself of that park, I really recommend you do. It is a beautiful county park. There is a large lake. There is ample bike path, boat rental, bicycle paths, lovely playgrounds. It is a lovely and beautiful park that is here and close by. We have ample park space, as many people who've spoken before me have said, here in this community. I don't see this as something that is needed. I think it's going to affect not only the businesses in the Lake Wellington Professional Center, where I also do business, but I think it's going to put out of business many other existing businesses. If we look at putting restaurants, we have restaurants throughout this community and a mall that is floundering because people aren't using those things. We're going to put up new restaurants to compete with those people who can't do enough business now. I think this is ridiculous. This community needs to speak up, and the other meetings that have been held had a sprinkling of people attending, and I think there needs to be much greater input into this process. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Mark Eli. I've been a resident and a business owner in Wellington for over 29 years. We have seen so much change in that amount of time, but now is the time to stop seeing all that growth. We are almost built out, so what do? We want to change all the good things we have in this village so we can continue to spend our tax dollars. I don't want to spend those dollars on changing things around just for the sake of changing things. We should be spending that money on fixing the things that need to be fixing. When we had the last meeting, all the choices we were given to discuss were the things that were predetermined to make changes. There was not a single thing said on there for things to leave things as is. We did discuss that at the tables, but that was not one of the options on the layout of the sheet. We have a pool that we spent millions on recently redoing. Why would we even consider it or moving it? Why not just maintain it? They want to talk about moving to the high school with all the things going around with security. Tomorrow, unfortunately, is the anniversary of that horrible situation from a year ago. What do you think is going to happen when people want to go to that pool at the high school? I don't know what happened to this, but it's gone. Can you hear me back there? Since this doesn't work? I have a very soft voice, as most of the council people will tell you. But why you're going to the school during the middle of the day and school events and everything else? Don't you think that'll be a security issue when that goes on? Versus right here, we have an open parking lot and everything else. That could be a problem. Why would we consider more green space when we have large plots of land, as many people have already discussed, that we never use? Why are we building a parking garage, potentially, where the pool is now, when we hardly ever use the overflow parking on the other side of the village hall? And something to point out that we might want to consider, and I've discussed this with a couple of council people, is there is a parking lot for the village employees. Great, we should have a private parking lot for them. But when we have events, there's nobody working in the village hall. Put up the gate, let them go park down there, and let the gate close at 11 o'clock. You just added 50 or 60 or whatever the number of parking spots are that are right there they can walk to. Why do we need to tear, by the way, I don't have it, my business is not in the professional center. I have it in another shopping center here in town. Why do we need to tear down a building that houses village residents and their businesses so we can have more open space that we can never use? Why don't we utilize the building we are in right now and build out a few docks back here? Try that out, see what happens. Put the things behind that building that was built where it is now so that we can take advantage of the view, albeit of a lake that's not fit to go in. Mr. Barnes from the village was recently quoted, and I believe the town crier, correct me if I'm wrong, please, that he hears different opinions from different people, and he clearly stated that he hears at the Lakeside event that people love the event. They love coming there. But at meetings like this, he hears different things. Well, there's a very good reason for that, and I can attest to this because at the, not this past one a week or so ago, but the previous Lakeside event, I walked around that event, and I asked about 50 people a couple of different questions. I had a clipboard like I was taking a real survey, but my real point was to find out, are you a resident of Wellington? Less than 40% of the people I spoke to were residents of this village. That means there were people coming in, and that's fine. We have a free thing. It's okay. I really don't have a problem with that, but I don't want to get the opinions of people that don't pay taxes in this village. I want to get people that are paying money in our taxes, are supporting our community, not for a free event, but every event. Taking care of the restaurants that are in this town, taking care of the businesses that are in this town, and not get the opinion of people that are not residents. Those votes, I'm sorry, they don't count because they don't vote for us. Okay, I did not ask anybody if they were taxpayers, because some people that rent, their landlords are paying taxes, but they're residents and they're entitled to use that. Tonight we're hearing, and all of the nights you're hearing from residents and the taxpayers, so I urge the council not to spend $1.2 million to do a study that we are doing right here for free. I'm going to use the word we a little bit, and I really mean me, but based on some things we're hearing tonight, it's we. We do not want this lakefront developed. We do not want a parking garage. We do not want to build a new office complex. We want to keep what is here. We made a big mistake 4 or 5 years ago when we bought that office building. Absolutely. We paid probably double what we should have paid. Whatever that reason is, it's over. It's done with. I know Mr. Barnes said about, we need to, as a business person, you'd want to recoup it. You're right. But we already spent the money as a village. It is gone. We will never recoup it, especially if it's developed into a green space. So if it's developed into green space, we'll never get the money back anyway. So why don't we just forget about that money? Because frankly, as much as it kills me, it's gone. We can't do anything about it. We have to live with it. Make the repairs that are needed. Get a management company to take over the running and the upkeep of the building. These are local business people that need office space. They're staying here in Wellington. They're spending money in Wellington. Their clients are coming here, spending money in Wellington, and introducing, in many cases, Wellington to people that don't live here now. Maybe they're going to become residents of Wellington. They are bringing clients in, they spend lots of money, and lots of other factors need to be taken into account. We need to support small businesses and the people that are here, but the bottom line is, we are the taxpayers. We need to make the decision. Yes, we elected the council people to represent us, but they need to represent us, the people. A referendum is what is needed, not just making a decision. And last night, even thinking about putting that on the agenda, to me is an insult to every taxpayer here, that they put that on the agenda when we still have these meetings going on, and it wasn't determined yet what we're going to do, but I guess maybe it has.
Next up, we have Richard Whalen and Steve Cagnett.
I'm Richard Whalen. I actually started swimming in Wellington in 1980 at that pool when it was brand new. Mr. Mayor, you made a mistake. It was state-of-the-art when you got here. Okay, so I was a swimmer and a kid. I grew up here. I lifeguarded here. I run the swim program now here. I teach at Wellington High School for the last 27 years. I did work in television and film for a while. But I've always been involved in Wellington. I remember growing up here, and we'd be at the pool on 4th of July. The fireworks would be over the lake. We did have sailboats. We did have canoes. We had a great lifestyle. We had so much fun in that lake. We were canoeing. We were sailing. We had a lot of events that were right around this lake in the country club, which I happened to work at as well as a lifeguard, and I worked as a busboy as I was growing up. And the country club was the center of this town. Everybody got a free membership when you bought a house here. That building was here. The office building I was referred to was here. Billy Elvisacker built it, of Gould Electronics, who was building a polo playground for himself. And that was Palm Beach Polo. That was our first pool we swam in. That little 25-yard pool in Palm Beach Polo was our first recreation area that we swam in. It was run by Palm Beach Polo, and when you bought something out here, that's where you went until they opened this pool in 1980, late 1980. My whole team was here. I swam here. We had Olympic swimmers from here. When we say it's state-of-the-art, it's okay. We're probably going to be second to Lake Lytle's new vision. They're going to have one like Martin County's pool within the next 3 years, and it's for the same funds that we should get another pool. Plantation has multiple pools. We shouldn't be satisfied with one. We need more pools. We teach the kids how to swim. What's more important than teaching a kid how to swim? One thing. One thing. How many times have you all grown up other places? I grew up here. How many times did you in high school or in elementary school, did those schools have pools where you learned how to swim up north? My cousins in New York, they learned how to swim in school. Down here, we don't have anything. We don't have the schools coming to teach the kids. If they don't get lessons at the community pools, they don't know how to swim. Over the years, I've had hundreds of kids swim for this program from the different high schools. Boca Raton built a pool somehow. The community of Boca Raton and the town of Boca Raton got a pool built on their campus. 5 high schools utilize that pool, making the bond between all the swimmers and families closer. My program makes Central and Wellington High School kids closer. Now, my concern is, like you said, if that pool disappears, where do we go? That pool has been here as long as I've been here, in different stages. I've seen it go in receivership in the early 90s when the Vidias lost all the development, and we had rats, and we had everything in that water that was unbelievable, and we had to swim at what is now the Wanderers Club, which was Wellington Club West, in this little pool without lanes and markers, but we sustained ourselves. We don't even have that option now because we only have this pool. Jess Santa Maria let us try to swim in his pool when we had some construction. I went from 175 swimmers and families that were swimming when we did a little reconstruction project in 2008, 2009 to 40, because we had to go all the way to Lake Worth to keep my team together. And then they came back afterwards, but for that year, we were down to 40 kids. Some kids came back, some kids didn't. They lost interest in swimming because that time. We can't lose the pool. We can't lose a pool, and we need to add to that so that the families and the Wellington people and the community could benefit from what we have done here. We have sent kids, like I said, to the Olympics. We have had kids at Brown University, the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, and I mean, Rob Boswell, whose son is in the Air Force Academy right now, just asked me if I would fly out to see his son because he got there through swimming. He's a very prominent veterinarian doctor here in Wellington. And of course I can't because we have a meet this weekend. The problems I see with this area, parking is an issue. When you have trucks out here for food night, you have something at the amphitheater, the parking is crazy. And it's dangerous because we have people coming from the facility after our practices and stuff, and people are lined up waiting to find a spot or to rush into it. So, I mean, as we go forward, as you decide what we should, the board and everybody, as we look forward to the future, all I know is we need to be assured that there will always be a pool for our program, and that it will be, I personally, the Wellington High School site for another pool would be beautiful. If they build another pool, it would be beautiful because, one, they have other things there that we could utilize. Now, again, I could go back to the early days when we were just thinking about becoming a village, and the Wellington High School was Wellington Recreation's facilities. All were open all the time until Pearson Park opened. And then it was like, we don't need it anymore. We have all these things. But people did come. I was out there. I was teaching out there too. People did come and run on, the runners club would run on our track, even when there was classes. And now they probably couldn't do it now because of the security issues. But the security issues would be addressed in any plan because I met with the school district people and everybody about what they can do or how they can do it. They will make sure that it's accessible all the time. If they build a pool there, they asked me about it and can we do it, and I said of course we can. We need to have another pool in Wellington. We need more than one. We need 2, 3. Plantation, 4 or 5. Plantation's about our size. We got one pool. They have 2 pools our size on one deck. Coral Springs have 5 pools on one deck. Coral Springs right down there, again, a community comparable to Wellington, yet we try to keep in competition with them. We need to keep up developing the kids and giving them the educations. My kids have had opportunities, thanks to this sport, to go places where a lot of kids would never have gone. And I'll tell you this, I had a kid at MIT that was going, and that was his first choice. And he had 2 questions wrong on his SAT, valedictorian of American Heritage, because he went to a private school. He was my swimmer. And they said, if you were 3 seconds faster, I could get you in. But his mother made him do all the things necessary and traveling back and forth to American Heritage. He couldn't put as much time required to be as good as he could have been. So he went out to his backup school, which was great. He's a computer engineer doing very well. But his heart was broken because if he was 3 seconds faster, the coach said flat out, I'll get you in 3 seconds faster. But they said it to him after the state meet. So, I mean, so our sport is a very health conscious sport. We have a tremendous amount of kids. Nicole This year, some of them are here, a lot of them had to go do homework. They're all in advanced classes. We have Bo, we have Bryn, a little girl back there, wave to us. We have Troy. These guys are getting a great thing from the Village of Wellington. They're getting great opportunities, and they are going far, and they're, frankly, very intelligent students. So my main concern is we always have a pool. I say we need another one. So I say if you're going to do something with that half-penny sales tax that we're all talking about, I am for. It's already done. It's collected by the county and the government. We voted for it. It's a referendum. The county's building a lot of facilities with it now. That's not coming back. That was earmarked for specific things. So we could say no to this, no to that. But that money's sitting there and had to be utilized, guys. So use it for what it is, for recreation, for parks. It's sitting there and it needs to be utilized. Don't lose it. Use it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Cagnett. I live at 1080 Lake Breeze Drive. I came here and listening to everyone with all of their good input. There's been such great input and community activity here. I think it's wonderful. Of course, everybody has their own opinions. I listened to the fellow that was just here about the extra pool. I think that's a good point, because number one is what it's doing is building our character for all of our future. And everything that we do has a big reflection on what the future is going to be. We have the offices for probably 170 different people that depend on that. Some may work, full-time, some may work part-time, and that's fine. And I think it's a great opportunity. My background came up as a community relations manager for Tampa Energy, and on the board of directors with the EDC for all of the counties in the northeast part of the state, which also included Ocala, Jacksonville, and also St. Augustine. And I was on the board of directors with the Economic Development Group and also the Chamber. I ran for state senate in 1986 in the state of Indiana. I was a certified residential appraiser for over 20 years. I'm retired. I had a real estate brokerage firm, and there were times that I had to work out of a small office. And I think that's all wonderful and great attributes, and I think the character of the community here is one of the finest that I've ever seen. My feeling is we have to look at not only the highest and best use for financially, but we have to look at what is best for the community, because we're all going to grow and bring our families up and want them to do the best they can and give them every attribute that we can to help their lives get better. I had my own television show for real estate back in the 90s in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And like I say, I am familiar with a lot of the things that is going on. I can see what the people are doing here in our community and our leadership. And from what I was told, and I believe, is that they are trying to gather some information. And so everybody at those round tables, and of course, a lot of times they have preconceived opinions as your leadership. My feeling is we don't need to spend a lot of money to do what we're doing. If you go out in the water, as I did today for 2 hours and was soaked on my pontoon, I saw pelicans, I saw osprey, I saw the most beautiful egrets. I've even seen a lot of the spoonbill, rose whatever, a spoonbill. I see some of the most beautiful fish. I probably wouldn't eat the fish out of the water, but they're beautiful to see. That's all part of our quality of life. And as a lot of us are older and getting up in our years, we want to make sure that our families who come to the area have a nice opportunity to be and have an enjoyable time. And we want them to come back. So we need something to help bring those people back. I don't believe we should tear the pool down and get rid of it, and I don't believe that we should take and throw the people out, the 170 families out that are supported by our building here for our offices. But then again, I look at also all of the residences, and I suppose there's over 100 different houses along the lake here, and we enjoy the water every day. Every day in the mornings, I get up and I say my prayers out on our dock. My personal opinion, what I'd like to see is everyone be able to come together and have some sort of enjoyment. And when I see the people out on the water in the mornings, I see people out with their rowing, and I don't know what the terminology is, but they're out, the crew, and they're out there and they're getting their exercise, and that's what I think our lives are about. I would personally, this is my opinion, without breaking a budget, I would like to see things like Ms. Stein said. Why not add a cooking area or something and let people have a good view of the lake so that they can come and bring their family or their friends to be here, not spending a lot of money. Possibly even going ahead and having like a boardwalk and some docks. Thank you. And so what that would do is give us that opportunity. Try to be as conservative as we can, but give us the best and the best by far quality of life, which we've all worked for. And we can also share that with our families. So that's why I'm asking not to have the preconceived ideas on all of the layouts that we've had. Let's be somewhat conservative so we can afford to live here. And everything I've heard about Wellington is nothing but fantastic. And that's why we're here. I found a house for my daughter, and a realtor came along, and she moved in December of last year, so she's been here over a year. I went to the neighbor's house knocking on doors, and I said, if you know of a place for sale, let me know. I'd like to buy it, because that's what my life is. It's the future is for the families. So the lady, within 3 months, she came back and said, well, I'm moving to North Carolina to be with my daughter. Would you be interested? I said, name your price. And so she did. I was a little shocked. And because she knew she had me and I wanted the place, I did an evaluation on the property myself on my own personal level. And I may have been biased, but she was biased in her price. I paid the price that she asked. And it was considerably more than what a buyer would look at trying to buy the property for. I'd like to thank everyone for being part of it, of everything that we're going to be doing, and all of us together. A lot of the things we will love, a lot of the things we hope we won't dislike too badly, but I do want everyone to have their input and not get the horse in front of the cart in what we're doing. And I believe that with our leadership that we have here in the community and all of the people that want to be involved in the community, the only way that you should be able to complain is if you are involved in the community. And so anybody who wants to be involved, whether you're a baseball coach, a swimming coach, a homeowner that maintains their property and has to straighten their daggone mailbox, that's all part of the place. And we all are doing it together. And I'd like to thank you again for all of your time and all of your involvement. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Mark Davidson and Cameron Boutel.
Hi, my name's Mark Davidson, 499 Azure Avenue, 30-plus years. New guy compared to some of you. I've been involved in the village for a long time. I served on the architectural review committees. I served on some of the planning sessions before incorporation. I chaired the committee that selected the site the library got built on. And in a public forum like this, I got accused of being a crook right there in the audience. And that's when I said, okay, when incorporation comes, I'm not going to get involved. Several of my committee members from that period of time did, and served great careers assisting the village in its growth. I used to run into Carmine Priori at the polling place and they go, Mark, you've got to run. We're going to get term limited out. You've got to run. And I never got involved. I'm a retired general contractor developer. I probably understand the charts that have been shown better than most of the people here, probably better than most of the village people. I also understand how budgets are developed. In the very first meeting, I walked around to every table here, asked every village representative I could find one question. At the meeting a couple of weeks ago, I asked the same question over and over. Never got an answer. Where's the demand coming from for this? I hear how the village came to be here, but we're the ones who need to be here. This is being driven by concepts and feel-goods, and in some cases, maybe even ego. It's not being driven by demand. I talked to the members of the rowing club. They're affected. They're already using the lake all the time. They don't want to do it. I talked to as many of the residents who live on that lake as I could get in touch with. Consensus was 25% said, I don't know enough about it to really care, but I don't know why we're doing anything. Most of the rest said, no. Why would we do this? So my question is still, where is the demand? The demand is not coming from the residents. The demand is coming from the village. That's not the way it's supposed to work. In the very first meeting, I started asking about costs. Because in the very first meeting, those charts they put up there, that bottom left corner where it said no change, those weren't on the charts back then. That's because they heard from us in subsequent meetings that said no change is an option. We don't have to develop this. In that first meeting, when I asked about budgets, I was told, oh, it's way too early to even try and do a budget. Some of you know 45th Street and I-95, there's an office park on that corner. When I walked onto that site, it was 115 acres of Melaleucas and Australian pines. I had a budget. I knew what it was going to cost to build that office park. My company did not go in there and buy that land and say, well, we'll figure it out. I knew what percentage of it was for roads, water, sewer, and drainage. I knew what percentage of it was buildable, how much of it would be parking. You don't go into these things blind. And to their credit, the village went to a reputable land planning organization and said, help us out here. And I've met with a lot of those companies. They'll design anything you want. Would you like some of that? Sure, we'll put some of that in there. Imagine going to Cold Stone and getting everything on the menu. That's what it felt like at the first meeting. We got soup to nuts and everything in between. Which ones do you want? And I kept saying, why are we doing this? Where's the demand? I come to you tonight after the council almost started down this path, I believe in error if they had, and I bring to you two things. In the first meeting in this room, they talked about the office building, and there's been a lot of talk about that, and I think the consensus is pretty clear on that. But if we really got a 20% discount off of a legitimate price 5 years ago, sell it. Take the profit. Because you didn't get a 20% discount off a legitimate price. If you can't sell it, you didn't get the right price on it. You bought it to land bank it and knock it down. That's not what any of us voted for. There was also talk at that first session about, you saw the pictures, the 4- and 5-story buildings. all this downtown look? Well, we're going to get with private developers and we'll do private public, blah, 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 blah. The village stays out of the real estate business, 1. The village stays out of the development business, for 2. And the village stays out of the landlord business, for 3. We don't need a bunch of ice cream shops and little businesses stuck along in here to make people come out here. You know when this water's going to get used? From about November till about now. And in May to September or October, that first cool front gets here in October, it's going to be 98 degrees and 90% humidity and ain't nobody out there. I'm sorry, I've seen the plans for the walking path that'll take you from the office building to the Veterans Memorial. Who's going to walk from here to the Veterans Memorial just to go for a walk? Well-meaning people have developed a grandiose plan that is not needed in the village of Wellington.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Cameron Butel. Lived in Wellington my entire life, 30 years. I'm here tonight to express my opposition in regarding the demolition of the Lake Wellington Professional Center to construct the waterfront project. I'm not a tenant in the building, so my motivation for the opposition is not because my business will be displaced. My opposition is because I don't want to see my hometown lose its hub of small business and lose its only executive office building. At the last public input meeting, we were shown a collage of very nice Madison Avenue marketing materials, but what was not presented to us was an actual plan with real cost estimates. During the Village Council meeting on September 11th of 2018, the council stated that the initial estimate was roughly $25 million. That is a substantial cost. At that same meeting, the council stated that if there was no public interest in the project, then there would be no reason to move forward. I think it's been pretty clear to here tonight that there is no reason to move forward. So it's my hope the council still maintains that position. If you want to see it, you can go on wellington.gov. It's at the 40-minute mark about. It has come to my attention that recent public information requests have not shown a strong public demand for the waterfront project, nor do these information requests reflect a public desire to demolish the Lake Wellington Professional Center. My concern is that the village will spend over $20 million for a project that does not meet the needs of our community. Something that carries such a high cost should also have a strong showing of public support. I ask the council to not only consider the costs associated with the waterfront project, but to also consider the costs of displacing small business owners, which could result in your neighbors, friends, and voters having to leave the village, lose revenue, and even shut down permanently. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Richard Kopp and Michael Whitlow.
I'm not that scary. Everybody's leaving.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? My name is Dick Kopp, and I'm fairly new to Wellington. And one of the reasons I moved to Wellington is our daughter moved down here. She was an equestrian person. And she said to my wife one day, you know, Mom, you and Pop are getting older, and if anything happened to you, it would be hard for us to get back to the Northeast. So why don't you just move to Wellington? And we thought about it for about 30 seconds, and we said, hell, why not? So we put our house up, and we sold it, and we moved to Wellington. And we're very happy we did. I should say we have been very happy until this project came up. The gentleman that stood in this podium a minute ago talked about demand. Well, I have to tell you, I've met with a couple of the town council members, and the demand is coming from the town council. It is not coming from the residents of Wellington. I spoke with the mayor. The demand for the Arts Center is coming from the mayor, not even the rest of the town council. Whatever happened to getting input from the people who vote? Where I come from, if our town, our community wanted to spend $1.2 million on a development plan, there would be a referendum, a legal referendum where the voters would have the right to vote. I keep getting told from the town council and the mayor, in Florida, that's not possible. I think that's BS. I think if the town people really want to have a referendum, they ought to stand up and demand a referendum from this town council. You know, we elected this town council to represent us. They are not representing the residents. They're representing their own bias. Believe me, when I met with the town council members, it is their bias that wants this, nobody else. They want to close down a business center here that's creating a profit for the village. It's standalone profit. It has almost $1 million in reserves to pay for maintenance on the building. No cost to the town, no cost to the village whatsoever. It creates over $250,000 a year worth of profit for the village. No cost to the village. They want to tear it down. They want to build a parking garage. Well, I have to tell you from personal experience, they are the most dangerous buildings you can build. Not only accident prone, crime rated, people have been raped and murdered in parking garages. You want to have that in the village of Wellington? Then knock yourself out. But you better have a big police force and about $200,000 a year worth of video cameras just to protect it. It goes on and on and on. You know, they have a lake out here. It's a beautiful looking lake. They want to build a beach. Why would you build a beach on a lake that you can't go swimming in? Beyond me. If anybody ever went to the restaurant they want to put up, if they were serving alcohol and they got drunk and they fell off the boardwalk, odds are they'd come down with some brain-eating disease and die from it. You know, it just goes on and on. I think the residents of Wellington have got to start asking the city council, do not move forward even with the $1.2 million without a referendum, without our input voting-wise. Because otherwise, they're going to cram this down your throat. And it's coming, folks, I guarantee you. They might not like what I'm saying, but it's coming, okay? Again, I don't want to repeat some of the things that people have said here tonight, but when you think about it, community, villages, government should not own businesses. They don't know how to run themselves for the most part. How can they run a business? They want to have a rental center. How can they run a rental center? You know, they're going to have lifeguards out there even though there's no swimming in case somebody falls in this lake. It goes on and on and on. And I suggest all of the residents of Wellington to really get behind the movement to stop this project before they spend this $1.2 million. Because I will tell you right now, once they spend it, it's a foregone conclusion they're going to build it. And if they build it, your taxes are going to go up exponentially. Now, in the beginning, there was a little note up there about the equestrian village. Ask the people who come down here from equestrian side, what do they really want? None of them will tell you they want what they want here. You know, they'll tell you they'd like to, you know, keep the amphitheater here, and they'd like to have the programs that they're having, and they'd be more than happy to support them. They're not going to come over here and go to some rinky-dink restaurant. You know, they're going to go all over the Wellington and other areas around here to go to these restaurants. There's serious money in the equestrian side. In case you don't know it, there's over $1 billion right now here in Wellington of horse flesh alone. Those people spend money. They're not going to spend it over here. You got to get real about it. If you want to support them, then do something that'll support them. Keep what you already have. You don't have to add anything to it. And for God's sakes, don't ever build a parking garage, believe me. Anyway, I want to thank you all, and I hope you support the fact that we really should not go forward with this project, and we should stop it before they spend the $1.2 million.
Good evening. My name is Michael Whitlow, and can you hear me? I've been riding and showing horses here since 1989. I moved here in 91, so I have seen a lot of changes in this community. But one of the things that was done that was a wonderful thing and needs to be always protected was the Equestrian Preserve. And enough said on that. What I see is the village and the staff saying and thinking it's easy to spend other people's money. I find the whole idea of trying to put whatever they want to put on 12 acres, including parking, ridiculous. It's just, I mean, it's very frustrating and very hard to explain, but it isn't gonna work. And I think that this project should do a few improvements around the waterfront or whatever, but no more office buildings, no more taking down things, never, there's no point. This project should not go on. 12 acres is what they're talking about, and how much parking of that percentage is going to be parking? A lot. Anyhow, one of the things that I'm thinking, and I have heard this several times, but I think that we really should have an amendment to the Wellington Charter that any time that there is a capital expenditure, that's not maintenance, that's not, clean the roads and mow the lawns and whatnot. Capital expenditure is building something or doing something over $5 million. It ought to be put on ballot for referendum. Pick a number, and not just this place, but any other thing that they want to build and do, they, meaning the government, want to do that is over $5 million should go to the taxpayer, because it is your money. It is your money that the government is spending. It's easy for the government to spend other people's money. Anyhow, I just find what they're trying to put here on 12 acres, including the parking, completely and totally irresponsible. Totally irresponsible. And my last point, is that this hasn't been brought up, but I'm going to bring it up now, and it's something we need to think about. But K-Park, it needs to be and should be, and this would be a very good use of capital, a good, beautiful park. It could have something that's near and dear to my heart, a planetarium. How wonderful is a planetarium? And it could attract money and people coming from other parts of the community and come to a planetarium. I'm just throwing out a couple ideas. How about a big pool center on K Park? We talked about the pool. We could do a lot of wonderful things. I don't know what. Oh, I couldn't see what you were doing. There could even be. I'm trying to think of the name of the thing. It's a botanical center. We could have a wonderful botanical center on K Park, which would be very useful for the children. It could teach a lot. It could help. It could be wonderful. We could have, and as I said, a planetarium. My Lord, a planetarium would attract a lot of people, and it would be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing for this community. We do not need more development. We do not need more buildings. We do not need more automobiles. We do not need more people. And I think that this meeting has clearly shown that the people of Wellington have had enough, and they want to take care of the community as it is. And thank you very much.
Next up, we have Carol Coleman, and I apologize in advance if I misspeak this name, Brad Nahersel.
I'm Carol Coleman. I live at 14224 Stroller Way. I am an equestrian, so I love open space, but I'm not here because of being an equestrian. I'm here because I have been very active in the Village of Wellington. I have been on planning and zoning for many years. I am not at the moment. I did run for mayor of this town about 8 or so, maybe 10 years ago. I really feel that the fact that we have only 12 acres, the pool was just renovated. There needs to be a referendum, and it's been said many, many times already. I think it is inappropriate for 5 council members to make a decision that affects the whole village. We already have empty storefronts. We have a failing mall. We have a season of really only 7 months. We have plenty of restaurants and stores that will suffer if you build more. We never have enough parking, and that seems to be one of the major problems in the Village of Wellington. We never have enough parking. We already have a village hall, a community center, a pool, an amphitheater, Scott's Place. They're already here. You want to put in a performing arts center? Find another place. Kravitz is in trouble. They don't even get their places filled, and they're downtown. That's all I have to say.
My name is Brad Naheisel. I've lived in Wellington for about 20 years. I love the lake. I love Wellington. I think the city council's done a wonderful job. When I moved here, when they brought the mall in, I thought it was wonderful. Just everything, it just gets better and better. Every year it's gotten better. My opinion, it's not going to be probably very popular. When I moved into Wellington, I didn't even know the lake was there. I couldn't see it. And in a way, when I saw it, it just really, it made me love Wellington all the more. And I would like to see other people enjoy the lake. I would love to see, I've said to my wife, wouldn't it be great if we had somewhere we could go and have dinner, a small restaurant on the lake. It would just, I think it would make the property values go up. I feel bad that some jobs would be lost, but other jobs would be made, and it's, but I know my opinion's probably not very popular, but I would love to see a lake. It would make me very happy. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Jeff Robert and Edwina Sperling. And we also have Mark Hilton.
My name is Jeff Robert. I've lived in Wellington for about 12 years. I've raised my kids here, and I, for one, am in support of this project. I think it's a great idea to keep Wellington moving forward. It keeps it fresh. I mean, otherwise we're just another stale city that doesn't renew itself. So that's all I'm going to say. Support the project and do what's great for the future of Wellington, thinking 10, 20 years down the road, not just today. Thank you.
Back in 1972, my parents moved us from Broward County to Palm Beach County. I remember when Atlantic Avenue and 441 was one lane each way. Look at it today. It's an absolute nightmare. Almost 6 years ago, being a longtime resident of Boynton Beach, my wife and I moved out here. And in that time, I have learned a lot about Wellington. In good conscience, I cannot agree with the displacement of 170 businesses, be they virtual, be they real. not only because my accountant is in there and he saved my ass a few times, excuse me, and I love him dearly for it. Thank you, Stuart. And I remember when Roxanne Stein, I was a little kid watching her on TV, so that's how long I've been around. No, she left. I wanted to at least give her the compliment before she left. But I can't agree with that. If you have reserves, fix the building. Fix the building. Put on a new roof. Do what has to be done. Change the windows. Make them hurricane resistant. We all remember the hurricane that decimated Mexico Beach. One house stood. Why is that? That gentleman took more than a year and a half to build that house because the three major networks all went in there and there's this one house and everything else is flat. But this one house stood. That house was designed to withstand 250 mile per hour winds. No damage. Fix LWPC. Put in the windows. Do what you can. I mean, granted, I understand you have X amount, but do what you can. Should government be a landlord? Either way, I mean, our own government is a landlord, so, and we see where that's gotten. I just can't see displacing people. Originally, I was in favor of demolishing the building and rebuilding it, but then again, as it was pointed out to me earlier, you've got nowhere to put these people. And I honestly thought there was enough retail space that could accommodate them, but there is not, from what I've been told. You want to use the lake? Fine, use the lake. Clean the damn thing up first. 2 weeks ago, I attended a council meeting. The very next morning, I went out, had an errand to run, and I came back and I parked my car at LWPC and I went and I walked around the lake. Besides all the duck poop and pelican poop and stork poop and every other kind of poop that's there that's not cleaned up, and the trash that's in the water, clean it up. I think it would go far. You have an aerator out there that's right there. It's running right now. Maybe a couple more would help. I don't know. I'm not in the business of these things. Really, I can't support 2 weeks ago, I sat at a round table and I had I was able to interject my opinion with regard to this project. No. I don't agree with it. I understand why council is doing it. If I remember correctly, at the council meeting that I attended, they were talking about the Arden community that is some 10,000 homes that's being built out off Southern and in Loxahatchee and all that back there. Yes, it's going to have an impact on Wellington roads. Yes, it's going to have an impact on Wellington businesses. No, I am not paying $15 for a hamburger unless it's Kobe beef, in which case I would expect to pay $150 for it. But I'm not paying $15 for a hamburger. Restaurants will fail within the first 5 years unless you've got a great business model. This is a proven fact. I don't think that any more burden should be placed on the businesses that are already here. I love Wellington, and I have to admit there were many years I said, I'm not going to Wellington. Why do I want to go to Wellington? Bunch of snobby-nosed equestrians out there. I was being honest. Sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone, but I say things the way they are. I don't sugarcoat it, and I hope you don't hate me for it. But we need things. We have a building that needs to be fixed. You got other things that need to be addressed. You got a lake that needs to be cleaned up. Because I'll tell you what, I'm 56 years old, and I sure as God's green earth, I'm not going to stick my feet in there. So till it gets cleaned up. Sorry, guys. I understand there people want to put limitations on council. You guys, as the young lady just said, you have the option of what to do and whenever the next elections are. But constant rotation in government gets absolutely nothing done. Voice your opinion, say what you're going to say, tell council how you feel, and go from there. If it falls on deaf ears, you guys know what to do. I don't have to tell anybody. And I'm a liberal Republican, believe me, I am. And no, I did not vote for that idiot in the White House either. I assure you of that. Huh? Yes, I did. I liked him as a businessman, but as president, he absolutely... Okay, enough said. Just my opinion, just my opinion. Let's fix what we've got. Let's work with what we've got, work within the constraints of what we got, and go from there. Tell council what you want to tell them. They'll listen. Thanks, guys.
All right, at the risk of regretting my next question or statement to everybody, those are all the cards we have of anybody that wish to speak. Are there any other speakers that would like to? All right, come on down, or actually just go to the podium and catch us on the way back from the podium with your card, or if you have a card handy, come on up.
Well, it's cleared out quite a bit, but speak up. My name is Jack Brownson, and I've lived in Wellington for 32 years, raised my family here. I also live on the lake, and we do a lot of boating on the lake, and one of the things that I'm really in favor of is developing some type of a restaurant here where we can come with our boats and we can dock. We can come in and we can have a sandwich and a beer or whatever we want to do and have, just have some fellowship there. I think it's, he talks about every restaurants fail within 5 years. If it's done right and you're sitting out on a patio overlooking the lake, watching the sunsets, and that thing, those restaurants don't fail. And one of the things that I would relate it to is Port St. Lucie Traditions. They built their town center around their lake, and they have restaurants, they have everything around their lake. It's a very active community. Part of the, we talk about tax dollars, but, we pay tax dollars also, those of us that live on the lake and those of us that have boats. There's really no place for us to go except right around the lake, which is a wonderful thing. But if we had a restaurant here where we could come and we could socialize, and the residents of Wellington could come and sit in here and look at the lake and enjoy a meal, it would be a very popular restaurant. I have no doubt in my mind that would be very successful. And one of the other things, we talk about, a lot of people have talked about they didn't want to spend their tax dollars on something that's only for a few. But, everything that we do in Wellington, tax dollars pay for it, and everybody doesn't use it. I don't go to the dog park, but my tax dollars help pay for the dog park. And I don't go play basketball on all the parks, but my tax dollars help pay for that. I think it's great because that enhances our community. It makes our homes more valuable. And so I think that all these things are good things to do. Parking is definitely a problem. We need to solve the parking somehow. And one of the other things that
that I'm very interested in is somehow tying the two lakes in. You know, there's another lake that a lot of people don't know that we have Lake Wellington, but we also have Lake Green over there, and I would love to see them put a flyover in where we could tie those two lakes in. Those people could come over here and socialize, go to the amphitheater and so forth with their boats. And one of the other things is that I'm very, very involved in the holiday Christmas boat parade. Some of the other boaters are in here that's very involved in that. And even with a rainy, really nasty day this past holiday parade, we still had almost 30 boats that got out there and in the rain and everything. If we tie the two lakes in, it can become a very, very nice community event. We can get over 50 boats out there and have a really nice boat parade. So I don't want anybody storming the podium, you know, because I have a different view than every single other person that's been up here. But I think that's very important. And, you know, and one of the other things that was only mentioned briefly with one of the last speakers was K Park. I know we always are trying to find something to do with at the K Park, and you know, I would think if we ultimately do have to move the pool, that would be a fantastic place to move that pool. So, but I would love to see a restaurant, maybe right in here. I'm telling you, it would be very, very successful, and a lot of people would be here to enjoy the view. Thank you.
And John Weber, if you'll go ahead and make your way to the other podium.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Vince Weber. I live over here in the Mayfair community, immediately adjacent to the area. I've been a resident here in Wellington for 7 years, but I've been coming to Wellington and spending time here for probably now 35 years. I had friends that have been living here for a long time, and I enjoyed visiting with them, and I thought this would be a nice place to finalize my remaining years. One of the things that I'm concerned about, and I've heard a lot of discussion here tonight, people have made an awful lot of the points that I had put down here as well, so I won't belabor to go over them again. But one of the things that concerns me is we're talking about doing planning. Well, don't you have to set priorities before you can have a 10-year plan? If you don't have priorities, how can you develop a plan? It just won't work. We have housing needs that have to be addressed both for seniors and for families. The plan doesn't call for when they will be built, or if they will be built, or where they will be built. How can that be a plan? It just does not fly. What type of housing are you going to have? Single-family detached? Multifamily? High-rise? Mid-rise? The town doesn't lend itself, I think, to the latter two very easily. It's not that type of community, at least in my expectations. Is research being done on the tax impact of all of these improvements and developments that we're talking about? I don't think there's been an analysis done as yet. Hopefully we'll have one shortly. Also, has an analysis been done on the impact of the type of growth we've been talking about here tonight on businesses, schools, recreational facilities, any number of municipal services that will be needed to handle these new areas that we're going into? It just didn't seem right to me. I've been involved in many similar projects over the years with a number of nationally known developers and others, and feel my input comes from some experience. If you do not plan properly, your execution will be failing. It just doesn't work that way. Pardon me. My glass thing broke. Since only one proposal, from what I understand anyway, is under consideration at this moment, I would respectfully suggest that additional proposals be sought. Sure, you'll have to spend a little money perhaps to get them, but I think then and only then would the best interests of the community be served. I'm sure, given the site and given the type of community that Wellington is, any number of developers, be they local, regional, or national, would be interested giving the site and its location. We all should be involved in this. We all should be talking to the council members and to those people directly responsible for the planning to be sure that our voices have been heard when the final plan is presented. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John or Jay Weber. I will try and be brief. I know it's getting late. I have been a resident here in Wellington for 10 years. I appreciate the Wellington staff for putting this all together. I appreciate the council members for being here to listen to us. I honestly can't tell you whether or not I support the development or not, because I don't think we know what we are going to be doing yet. You know, this is the very beginning of a process, but I think that some people have decided they don't want to have anything done. I understand that. But for most of us, we get a lot of misinformation. The pool is going to be completely gone. The pool is going to be there. The pool is going to be out by the tennis center, the high school. Until we move forward with this process, which includes meetings like this, which includes the staff putting together, eliminating things that are just not feasible, I don't think most of us are going to be able to say whether or not we support this program. So what I support is that we continue with this process. We continue to work toward a development so that at some point we can say stop if we need to. But right now, I don't think we're there, at least in my opinion. I've seen some interesting ideas, and I would like to see those move forward, and hopefully we can develop it, or if a feasible, responsible program, development program can't be reached, that we put a stop to it. Thank you.
My name is Jana Rodriguez. I'm a resident at 1381 Windycliff Drive, right across the street from City Hall in Eastwood. There's not a lot to say because I think the residents have spoken tonight. Pretty much seems to be everybody on the same page. One thing that I observed, some of our council members were in and out of the room while the residents were speaking. I don't want to call anybody by name, but I think it would be important that if you actually are here to listen to us, you would have remained in the room. Another thing is the Lake Wellington events. They draw a crowd. I come to the events. I'm a mom. I had 4 children. I had 2 currently at home. We come here for fun. During one of the events, I noticed, actually, I did not notice the presence of the council members taking surveys out there. I saw it on Facebook, the picture of a child filling up the surveys, and I was a bit turned off by that because my 9-year-old thinks that he's 8 foot tall, bulletproof, and can fly. He does not pay taxes. We do. We have a beautiful community center, which I had intended in the past to use to celebrate my children's birthdays. We no longer can afford it. My children used to play tennis just right by there. We no longer can afford to take our children to tennis because by removing the tennis courts from here, we now don't have the ability to drive to Green Acres or near Green Acres to take them to class. My son is about to start swimming at our pool. I had a daughter who already went through the pool, and I know how important that pool is for our community. I called it a community pool in our last meeting, and I was corrected by someone. It is still a community pool because it is used not only for professional swimmers, it is used for our community members for fun. And it has worked so far. I've never met anybody who complained about it. As a matter of fact, the more I speak about this matter, the more opposition I see from residents, from taxpayers of Wellington. I do hope and I pray that council is sensitive to what is happening here tonight, because one thing that I can't help but notice is those who support the project have personal interests on the project. They either want to come on the boat and have fun, or they want to come and have some sort of, yeah, and I understand that, because we all tend to support what we would be enjoying it or somewhat benefiting from it. But I really need council to think about this as a community, as our futures, the future of our children and your children's children. I moved to Wellington 13 years ago. I came here once and I fell in love for it. I love to see the sidewalks all over the community. I love to see the parks all over the community. I love the sense of security that you get from Wellington, and how government has worked really hard to keep Wellington the beautiful place it is to live. And I know there is, discrepancies, and people will not agree. We're not a gold coin, to make everybody happy. But we live in a nice place. If you go down south, just go south of Boca, and you appreciate this very much. I do hope that we don't rush through this project. It really feels a rush through the whole process. We just had meetings right about Christmas time, and then all this, we have voting, I believe, next month. I mean, I don't see why the rush. I think that, I understand when they try to pinpoint, the future. Well, I don't know what the future holds. I know where it's going to impact us today, and they haven't been able to tell us how we're going to be financially impacted by that. I do not support displacing over 150 businesses. I have no attachments to the Wellington Professional Center, but there is over 150 families who have their livelihood right behind our community pool. To place a beach, as if we haven't heard or learned about what just happened in Disney World when a child was pulled by a gator inside, not even to consider the quality of the water there, which is not, everybody knows it's not really a lake. You want to enjoy it? We have been enjoying it. Bring the bounce houses, take them away. Bring the kayaks, take them away. We have been enjoying it so far. I don't think we should be paying for it. We are, because there's interest behind it. But if you want to rent it out, build, docks or whatnot, rent your kayaks, we have an awesome area right behind the community center. Use it. It's already there. I just really, really hope that you guys can be thoughtful, that you guys place your heart on those who voted you here. We voted you because we believed you would be working for our community. Please do so. Thank you.
Okay, that actually is the last card of anybody that wished to speak. What I've got are some other cards that didn't wish to speak, but I'm going to read them into the record. So please stay tuned and enjoy the next few minutes. Robert Wheelock, I'm against this. Total waste of money. Mark Offerman, rebuild Wellington's original fitness route 5 miles. Diane Souter, we do not need a city place like Town Center. This is my backyard and I do not want this growth. Nicole DeFlorio, I oppose. Patricia Bacci, people really do not want more building development. They want green space. Please buy the North Course and keep it passive park preserve. We need a place for nature and wildlife. We need forests. Stop the development. We don't want it. You're cementing every inch of Wellington. Please stop. You're ruining it. Your own records department is in the Old Boys and Girls Club. You need to address that issue. That needs to be here on campus and near Village Hall. Fix that actual problem. Do not move the pool. It's absurd, just know. The kids need it. It can't be moved to a school location, just please, no. No one wants this, honestly. Let us use these monies to fix actual problems: crime, camera, security, cleanliness, records department, green space, straw issues. Jeffrey Light, the existing facility at the lake end is already what we need. No change is necessary. In fact, the change would destroy the charm that is here. Do not do this. Edwina Sperling, I oppose. Pam Johnson, the presentation was useless because it did not address cost of demolition, construction, plans, additional staff, maintenance, insurance. Where was the council tonight? Why weren't they here, front and center, to listen to their constituents? Wellington is not really offering a choice to the taxpayers because cost has been omitted. The entire issue has been very poorly handled and forced upon the people. Do not build any additional buildings or structures. Instead, use funds to maintain building green spaces and pay for the water treatment needs. Editorial footnote, we have Mayor Ann Gerwig, Vice Mayor Michael Dreyhouse, Councilman John McGovern, Councilman Michael Napoleon, and Councilwoman Tanya Siskin present and listening to all the comments this evening. Michael Martingale Jr., how can the council, without any public input, force several hundred businesses to move with zero consideration on how they will impact public tax receipts, use of other Wellington businesses, and those businesses and residents remaining in Wellington? This must be studied and alternative space found for those businesses before any decisions are made concerning this project. Sherry Marr, changing too much will lose community feel. Keep what we have and improve it. This needs to be put to the residents as a referendum. Judith Gordon, do not build park. Justification for building this project has not been fully explained, not needed. Monica Cagnett, I support the boardwalk, restaurant, and many of the changes. We need to remain a vibrant, active community. Arlene Smith, I oppose the lakefront plan. Does not make sense to displace a group paying rent to the village at a profit for the village and bring in facilities that will not generate as much money. Bobby Retman, it is sad that the village council members are putting businesses out of these offices. This project is a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. Jack Rosen, I oppose. Jorge Aguilar, what is going to happen to our swim team? There is no pool like our Wellington Aquatics Complex in this area. I think it's important to keep supporting this sport in our community. If you are going to move the pool, can we make sure you have a new one ready before you lose the old one? Darrell Lyon, as a resident, I oppose spending the amount of taxpayer money on any of the proposed projects. I do not see the need for it. Consensus on what type of project, Wellington resident outcry, or clear and thorough planning. I also oppose demolishing the Lake Wellington Professional Building for the following reasons. Displace 70-plus business owners. The building generates approximately $275,000 annual profit. The building has reserves of $800,000 to $900,000. The tenants in the building pay market rents. Should Wellington have acquired the building? Probably not. But that decision was made, and here we are. So why not include a profitable resource into any project considerations versus incurring expense to demolish it and losing annual net revenue from it? Gene Villa, I oppose. And those are all the cards we have this evening. So for the remaining residents here and everybody that was here previously, we thank you for coming out tonight. Stay tuned on all our regular social media channels as well as our other publications for updates as we continue in this process for public engagement and public input and additional information on the Town Center project. Thank you for joining us this evening.